Carlos, you ready? All right. Okay, we'll call tonight's City of Olivet Planning Community Design Commission for January 18th, 2024 to order. Mr. Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Sam Wallach. Present. Tim Spiegelglass.
Present.
Laura Ragsdale.
Present.
Daniel Rosenberg. Absent.
Absent.
Brian Lewis, present. Vice Chairman Carol Wagner
Present.
and Chairman Robert Trigall.
Present. Let it also be known that our city council member or city council liaison, council member Missy Waldman's in attendance, as well as staff liaisons, Carlos Trejo, Olivet's Director of Planning Community Development Department, Dawn Doty, Senior Planner, Jack Carswell, the Planning and Zoning Administrator, and I also see some other members of the council in back. So what's that? Oh, yeah. Yeah. Rich Knox and Greg Carl in attendance, as well as our city.
Your microphone turned.
As well as Rich Knox, Councilmember Rich Knox and Councilmember Greg Carl's in attendance, as well as our city manager is in attendance as well. So that being said, tonight's meeting's going to be related to our new city plan. So we're very happy with everybody who's in attendance. And Carlos, we don't really have to go through any of the normal procedures because this meeting is going to be dedicated just to this plan. So the only thing we have is typically before every meetings, we do have public comments. These are general public comments, not related to items, on the agenda. So if anybody in attendance does have a public comment, we'll ask you to come forward. Before anybody raises their hand, we do ask that public comments be limited to no more than 3 minutes, just be respectful of everybody's time, and also make sure that we get everybody's opinion heard. So that being said, is there anybody in the audience that has any public comments that are not related to the agenda items? Seeing none in the audience, Carlos, will you please check the online? Oh, thanks, Mr.
We are all good. Thank you.
Okay, good. So we will then move on to item 3, preliminary discussion regarding the comprehensive plan update and schedule. Carlos?
Right. Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. My name, of course, is Carlos Trejo. I'm the Director of Planning and Community Development for the City of Olivet. And tonight before you, we are presenting the 2024 Comprehensive Plan Update and commence the process for its adoption. Before that, of course, by state statutes, the Commission is required to hold a public hearing in the process. I'm going to give a quick summary of how we started, where we got, and then I'll hand it over to the consultants to go over the plan, the engagement, their procedures, their process, their recommendations in that process. So let's see if this will work. So as many of you are aware, we currently operate under the 2006 Comprehensive Plan that was initiated and started back in 2003 through 2006 in its adoption. At that point, we were in the process of kind of trying to reinvent the Olive Boulevard corridor. Our residential properties were doing great. There was a lot of reinvestment in existing and new properties in the community. But we had some eyesores along the corridor and in our industrial park, some high vacancies in that process. The goal of the 2006 plan was to create a new identity for Olivet in that process. We titled it as a dynamic sense of place. Sense of place is a common planning term that creates an area or a place that you feel like you belong, you're part of, your environment. Dynamic was to make it unique in our own. The biggest concern we heard from residents was you drive from East Olive, head west, and you get to Lindbergh. You don't know when you entered Olivet or when you exited Olivet, and everything looked pretty much the same. We had the old vacated Ponderosa building that was vacant for over 4 years. We had the old Burger Chef that then turned into a Hardee's and then sat vacant and demolished for a couple of years. And then we had some redevelopment efforts that the city just wasn't happy with, no offense with the operators of timekeepers, but the building that they acquired was just not at the par of what the community expectations were in that process. We also were recovering from a big redevelopment process that went, awry for lack of a better word. And we were trying to rebuild the community into something that we could be proud of and put full support in that process. And that's how we came to our 2006 comprehensive plan. We hired consultants to assist us in the process, and their whole goal was to focus on identity. All of that needed to create and develop its identity of its own in there, to leverage our residential resources, that reinvestment, the wave of new residents that were coming in, the strength of the schools, and our location being centered in the county. And through this process, I think we developed a good plan that has guided us the past 20 years. It's kind of set the Goldman rule of where we want to be in terms of our identity. And I think we've kind of transformed that. We hear now people or businesses are in the paper, things happened in all of that, as opposed to things happened on Olive, or things happened in Central County or Central in there, or near Creve Coeur. And there we have businesses that are proud to identify themselves as residents of Olivet, and people that note that they're from Olivet in that process. And that was one of the fundamental goals of that comprehensive plan. And that was to create that sense of place, a community in there. Now that we've matured, and not to say that we still have more to do, but that we're progressing in the right direction. It's now building on that community that we created, and people wanting to be involved and integral into that process, people wanting to engage with their neighbors, with their subdivisions, with their community as a whole, and be part of a process. And that's where we get. But overall, the 2006 comprehensive plan has served us well. You take into account a lot of the successes that we had with this plan. We had a $280 million investment in the interchange at I-170 and Olive that had lagged since the 1980s, till we finally got it set and put in place in 2002. Use the consultants early on to help us, assist us to coordinate with the Great Rivers Greenway to realign the Centennial Greenway and to go through all of that, as opposed through the abandoned railroad tracks parallel with I-170 and then down to Page in there. And that started to create the momentum and the identity that we were looking for. We had a $40 million partnership with the GRG just to do that I-170 to price improvements back in 2004 in there. And then they've reinvested and made enhancements to the existing improvements today. We had changes to the Shops at Price Crossing. Remember, that started off with a quick trip in the front and a strip retail center in the back. And we pushed to create that mixed use type of development, a multi-level, different type of users, and being unique with the parking. So it wasn't just a big parking field in the front. We started to engage with the Olive Boulevard corridor, as opposed to, nothing wrong with the Walgreens here or the green space in front of it, but we wanted our businesses to be part of the community, not turn away from the community and face backwards or be disconnected from the roadway network. We had a commitment to ensure that the Arrowhead, Hilltop, and Collingwood neighborhoods belonged to the community of all of it. We stopped referring to them as the Northeast Quadrant. We started getting new residential redevelopment in there. We started with the villas at Hilltop and looking for other opportunities to get coordination and improvements. Many of you here too were integral and even pushing it further, working with neighbors and such. And we worked hard to get the sidewalk network to start to connect to the community on that end through the Dillman Industrial Park improvements in there. It helped us codify our commercial design guidelines, which we had none, and set up our streetscape requirements, which were not uniform throughout the corridor, and started us putting us in a direction so we were prepared and ready for these type of improvements. We went out for a request for proposals for the southwest corner of Olive and I-170 back in as soon as we adopted the plan in 2007, But in 2008, we hit the recession and those plans didn't go further in there. And that was a good thing because we continued to press on the plan and we started engaging with our neighboring communities, University City, with Creve Coeur and the 39 North in there. Our engagement with University City, we actually they adopted our same design standards as we had prepared, and we even had even a cooperative agreement of redevelopment of that interchange. Unfortunately, it only went so far in the process and there was a lot of hands in there, but we had to, work our separate ways, but still with the same common goal of taking advantage of the interchange and using it as a catalyst for redevelopment and reinvestment in our communities. We coordinated with 39 North and worked on the process as not being part of the boundaries, but how we integrate within their boundaries and provide support, housing and other opportunities such as our parks and recreations to push ourselves further into that development. We developed the Catalyst strategy, which was a step, extending the step of the of the 2006 plan to make sure we were re-engaging on the same type of strategy of taking advantage of the interchange. And then looking at our old City Hall facility, which was somewhat antiquated and needed reinvestment in there. So we took advantage of, hey, what do we put the old City Hall in the market, set out an RFP or request for proposals for back to I-170 and see if we can gauge some interest and start filling in the gaps. And the council took the challenge and relocated our current facilities off of Olive to here on Dealman, set out an RFP for the old City Hall facility, set out an RFP for I-170, and we've seen the developments that have occurred on both of them, both the Oliver and of course Olive Crossing in there. Those were all, again, illustrated in recommendations of the 2006 comprehensive plan. We started to see our streetscape starting to be defined and furthered along that corridor. We had the approval for the bond to relocate in there, and that catalyst strategy and that bond led to almost $500 million in private investment with the Olive Crossing, the Olive apartments, and the city center redevelopment, which is the Oliver. Then we saw others invest in the community as they saw that we were moving forward with a well thought planning process that was out there and available. So we saw Easy Storage, we saw the sellers invest in Plant Haven, we saw Firestone, and we saw these developments come into play, in that process. Then we even furthered through the Parks Master Plan. That was an outcome of trying to take advantage of our park systems, our community systems that were in place. In there, they took that one step further, developing their master plan, and essentially the council again stood up to the challenge, went out for a bond vote, and got the money to implement all the recommendations and improvements and reinvest in our parks and our community center that led to Five Oaks at Warson, which you can see that transition slowly as we were concerned about our identity. We started to establish our identity, and now we're looking to build on that community of the identity that we've established. And that's what leads us to our comprehensive plan update in there. We issued a request for proposals, and that request, we had three main pillars that we wanted consultants to engage our community in. One was regarding equity, to have a process for engagement, and to start bringing in principles of sustainability into our long-range planning processes. And I think there is not a better firm that can engage and interact with the community or individuals than Shockey. And again, the commission and the council again stood up by funding the project, and we engaged with Shockey Consulting to assist us in that process. And Beth and April will talk about the procedures as it went through in there. So I think we had a very good foundation to develop the next 20 years in here, and again, bringing in more of our community as part of the process. I'll note there was one of the things that the most interesting fact, through this process, over nearly half our community wasn't here in 2006 for the original plan. That original plan set up, and the strengths of our schools and all that, that attraction, half our community is new in there. We are one of the few communities in St. Louis County that has shown 2 consecutive decennial of population growth, while a lot of our neighbors lost in population. We also, I think since the 1970 census to the 2000 census, we're losing residents. And we turned that around after the adoption of the 2006 to have gains in 2010 and 2020. And we put a good footing that in 2030 will again show a good increase in population, not an oversized, but that we're still a growing community investing in our affordabilities and housing types. So I will now throw it over to Shaki to kind of give you an overview of the plan process. They did put a really good graphic, and we kind of played around with it in terms of, again, our pillars were regarding this engagement in there, where we had public feedback. We had Shaki assemble all that information, go back to the advisory committees, the councils, the commissions. Shaki at, collating all that information, going back to the advisory committee, commission, the council, taking in more public feedback, putting all that into the draft to where we are today. So again, kudos to the consultants. I think we did an excellent job in that first process of selecting a team to work with. And I think they've done an excellent job in the next process of presenting the plan. So
Great
Thank you,
summary
Beth
and
Winfrey.
great introduction to this.
absolutely. And then
Thank you
you
very
should be
much.
set.
Okay. Switched up here. Well, good evening, everybody. So I know this is a formal proceeding, but I forgot to tell Carlos, I think there should be fireworks.
They're going off in our head.
Maybe as we leave, maybe fireworks. Because it's been a year, and it's hard to believe to me that it's been a year, but it's been a year. So it's been a really good experience for us, and I hope for the community too. I mean, really enjoyed being out in your community. So many people came out and supported the process and got involved. So it was really fun. We were really pleased to work on the plan. So are slides up there? Yeah.
Oh, I just jumped so quickly.
I'll keep talking and the slides can catch up because they're not revolutionary, the first couple of them. So what we're going to do is just give you a quick overview of the process. I know many of you are familiar with what we've done, so we'll keep it to a pretty high level. And then April's going to walk you through the plan document page by page. It's about 200 pages, and we're just going to sit down no, we're not going to do that.
Read it out.
We're going to just show, kind of highlight what's in the plan so you know what to look for if you haven't spent a lot of time with it, and just hit the highlights of why the components are there and how you might approach looking at the plan document. So she'll do that. And then we'll talk about the next steps for adoption. So Carlos really touched on this about what the city was looking for in a request for proposal. So these were our marching orders as we got started. And there was a big emphasis on just developing a community consensus around a vision and wanting to have that be the guidance that was left for you all, PCDC, elected officials, and city staff out of the plan. I think probably I could quiz you on this now and you would everybody would give us good answers. What is a comprehensive plan? There are so many pieces of it. It's just like its name implies, it's comprehensive. So it's touching on housing, it's touching on transportation, it's touching on the environment, city services, health. So you'll see all of that in the plan document. Requires a lot of public input to feel like you really get a sense of what the community wants. Because Carlos's goal and best practice in planning is to make sure that the comprehensive plan is really carrying out the community's vision for its future. And so we feel good about the amount of just interest from your community that is reflected in the plan. And then it's going to provide a framework for policymakers. So that framework and guidance aspect is important. This isn't getting prescriptive. It's not telling you what to do with every development proposal that comes in, but it is providing guidance for those decisions in your deliberations. Everything okay with yeah, okay, just checking. Okay. Just want to make sure we're not leaving anybody out. Not. How did we get here? Yes, that's good. How did we get here? No. Sorry. So what I want to share from this graph is just that repeating really what Carlos offered in terms of our process. It was important for us to have that foundation of public involvement, but also to be going back to the decision makers here. So city council, PCDC, city staff, to make sure that throughout we were checking in with them. And so we weren't getting too far ahead of anybody, and we could get to this point in the process with everyone knowing what we're doing and feeling comfortable with the direction and the recommendations in the plan. Thanks, Dawn. Quick overview of our community engagement. So we had that top level tells you that decision-making layer that I just mentioned. We had a great advisory committee. Several members are here. So we have Carol, we have Brad, we have Brian. Thank you for your service. Annie is here. Thank you for your service. And Jim was here. I think he had to go, Jim Person. So we had a really great advisory committee that we got to work with. And then something that we got to do here that we don't always get to do, but I really appreciated, was we got to have focus groups with people who groups that did not come out in the same numbers to our initial phase of engagement. So after we finished our survey and our first public meeting, we looked at demographics and we sat down and said, okay, we need to hear more from Asian residents, from Black residents. And then we also wanted to talk to a couple other groups, business owners. So that was an environmental interest. And so it was a good opportunity to have small group conversations and get perspective on what we were hearing. So I almost want to just thank you for the opportunity to do that, because you all funded it. And sometimes that's tricky for communities to do. So that was great. And then we had digital presence as well. So we had the online platform that you all are familiar with, and the draft plan is there too and available for the public now. So that's just a quick glimpse at our engagement. The next slide, when we get to it, is going to be this awesome map that shows you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Shows you where we got survey responses. And so good representation from the community as a whole. And that's not easy. You had a lot of great support from your city staff that really put boots on the ground, especially north of Olive, to get the numbers that we got. So I'm proud of that and appreciative of their help. So the themes that we heard from talking to the community that you're going to see reflected in the plan are just a desire for more ways to come together. So whether that's restaurants and gathering places, or just valuing the diversity that's in the community, and really having that be part of your sense of place here. You know, it's not something that's an aspiration or a goal. It's an acknowledgement of what's here and a desire to really bring that forward in your built-in environment, in your restaurants, in your events. So that we heard a lot. Desire to preserve the affordability that exists here, the variety of housing you have here. Also, we heard, regularly from people who said, yes, but we also want to maintain the quality that we have, and we want to make sure that we're not undervaluing the land that we have in the all existing homes. So balance, as you all know, that you hear all the time in PCDC, you hear from both sides. And then we heard a strong, pretty consistent voice asking for more attention to sustainability. So you asked us to have that conversation with the community, and I think the response was, yeah, we're interested in having the city take a more active role and talk to the community about that. So because you hadn't seen this before, I just wanted to share this quickly. You see a lot of public engagement reporting from us over the last year, but this was the last survey that we did from the draft recommendations open house. And so it was a really simple survey that just said, here are our goals, a little bit about the goals, how supportive are you of this goal? And so strong support for all of the goals. You see the most opposition, and I would, I'm going to put it in quotes a little bit because opposition is sort of a strong word. There are probably only 6 responses behind that opposition. But it's the same questions that you hear a lot about, wanting to maintain quality and sort of equal comments that say, We want to have more affordable housing versus we don't want to have any apartments or multifamily. So that's, I don't think you'd be surprised by anything that we heard in that, but by and large, strong support for the goals. And same thing here. So that's success to us that we get to the end and we see strong support for the goals that have been in front of the community for several months. So we're really pleased with that support and look forward to hearing any public comments that come out of the next phase of the public hearing. So April is going to help you take a look at the plan, not the 200 pages, but an overview. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, so like Beth mentioned, I'm just going to walk through some examples of what you'll see in the plan and sort of explain how all this fit together. So first and foremost, to explain the design of the plan, all of it is unique mosaic of diversity, of cultural backgrounds, and we really wanted to just bring this in terms of the design. So you'll notice a colorful mosaic theme. So that's where that came from. We wanted to make sure that was front and center throughout the plan, since it's such a fundamental identity to all of it that we heard throughout the whole process of this plan. And also, as Carlos and Beth have mentioned, there were three, I would say, specific, what we called plan drivers. All that you all made the priorities of the comprehensive plan clear from the beginning in the creation of the advisory committee and the request for proposals, that we wanted to have equity principles in not only the engagement process, but the plan itself in terms of the recommendations that we offer. Sustainability as well. Like Carlos mentioned, sustainability is a broad concept that can be summarized into 3 E's, what we like to call. So the one we think about most is environmental sustainability. And that one has its own chapter, but is also interwoven through different community actions and objectives across the board. But also economic sustainability, which again has its own chapter, as well as social equity, which is woven throughout the plan as well. And like Beth mentioned, specific community engagement efforts were really taken to make sure that we're hearing from everybody representing all of it. So you'll see this in the plan. It highlights a little bit more specifically where you can find these. But again, these are overarching themes that come through strongly throughout the plan. So another thing I wanted to point out was the structure of the plan itself. So the comprehensive plan, as you all know, really guides the Planning Community Design Commission, as well as City Council, in the decision-making process related to various policy and development areas, including land use, budgeting, department coordination, and ensuring that policies are aligned with this overall shared vision that really guides the whole plan itself. This is a broad vision, but which is then supported by goals. And then the objectives go underneath those goals that are really going to be the more measurable aspects to ensure that we're, meeting success. And then a number of potential community actions that fall under the objectives to help us reach the objective. These potential community actions, the success of the plan isn't solely dependent upon meeting each one of these, but they are our recommendations based on responses that we heard, or in response to a lot of public engagement that we heard, our expert knowledge on solutions, as well as all of our discussions we've had with you all and the community as a whole. And then as far as the structure and organization of the plan, you'll notice there are 5 chapters. And these chapters, I'll go over here in a second, but these are kind of recommended by the American Planning Association as best practices or key areas to focus on in comprehensive planning. Within each of these chapters, we have subtopics. And the subtopics will have corresponding goals, objectives, and community actions to address specific categories like housing, transportation, economy, sustainability, etc. And I'll get into a little bit more of what those chapters look like in the plan here in a second. So coming to our community vision, this you've seen, this has been with us for a while at this point, came from our original community vision survey and workshops that we had with the community, and has really guided our process along the way. And I'll just read it for the sake of accomplishment. All of it is a vibrant and unique city strengthened by its diverse population, invigorated by its opportunities for community connection, and distinguished by its dynamic sense of place. So that's your really big overarching vision that will guide this plan. We did break it down into more specific guiding principles that gets into a little bit more of the detail of what each of these aspects means for all of it. So not going to go through and read this for everybody, but this just provides a little bit more meat to that vision statement. So here are those, the structure of a plan again. You'll see a color coordination happening here, but those 5 categories are built environment, where you'll have housing, transportation, infrastructure, public facilities, and city services. Then we have economy, and then safe and healthy environment, which includes the healthy environment, public safety, as well as recreation. And then the environmental section, which is again where we really focus on the environmental, natural environment, sustainability, and finally land use. Then to give you a glimpse of what we kind of have been calling this our framework. So this is where you'll find the specific goal. The example I have shown up here is from the neighborhoods and housing chapter. You'll see the goal at the top, and then we wanted to tie in how the goal ties into the vision statement as a reminder of how all of this connects. The specific objectives, again, are those more measurable objectives that will really help guide how do we actually accomplish high quality housing that is diverse in terms of type and price. We've then broken it down into these potential community actions, which I mentioned earlier, and these are those more specific actual, either policy changes, partnerships, education and outreach, or potentially other studies or plans that can be done to meet some of these objectives. You'll also notice a little green leaf appearing throughout the chapters, and that is to specifically identify environmental sustainability practices. As I mentioned, sustainability is really important from the beginning and what we've heard a lot from the community. And it is a overarching theme and concept that has a place in not only just when we're talking about the natural environment, but the built environment as well. So you'll see that just a little note throughout different topics. There's also some call outs, that little paragraph below we have a good amount of overlap in the plan, which is actually really good. It shows resilience and redundancy in a positive way, because you want things to solve more than one problem at a time. So you'll notice certain paragraphs tying in, if you're interested in this, or this is where you can find more actions on social equity or diversity or environmental policies, for example. Next, I mentioned the chapters. I wanted to highlight a little bit about the structure of those. So this is a little snippet from our natural resources and environmental sustainability chapter. This is where you can go to find a lot more detail and context, which frames the topics so that you can get a better understanding of what that includes. We have a section on trends for each topic area. These highlight different trends happening locally, but also more regionally and even nationally that are good to consider, as well as putting the goal in the forefront of the chapter to know, just to frame that section again. Then we move into a little bit more of what we call insight. And this is where you'll find all of that specific information. You'll see graphics that denote specific numbers, as well as pictures of, things and all of that. That's right outside here, green infrastructure. And then we've tried to incorporate different community feedback throughout the plan chapters as well. So you'll see some call out boxes that highlight and reinforce what we've heard from the community. And then we have the land use section. So land use, we have the current land use map, what I'm showing here, which is really just displays the type and use of land currently and all of that. And land use is different than zoning in the sense that zoning is a little bit more strict and can regulate those specific parameters for building sizes, parking lots, etc. So land use is really just showing the use type of the land. For your comprehensive plan, this is the future land use is not expected to change significantly. You all know all of that is 99% built out. And what we heard from the community is that the current development patterns are very much supported and well established by residents. So the change that you'll notice on here is that there was a couple of vacant parcels. I think they're about 7.5 acres in total up in that northeast area. And those are vacant, currently zoned industrial. So we colored them in industrial land use for now, but the idea is that those are very much open to opportunity and whatever would be the highest and best use for that area and that would fit into the community vision and goals for the plan. The other concept I wanted to point out in terms of land use is these character areas along Olive Boulevard. So as Carlos had mentioned, your last comprehensive plan really focused on Olive Boulevard. And, rightfully so, this is your key corridor. But it originally called out these 3 character areas, the West End, City Center, and the I-170 interchange, as sort of key, character areas to identify desired development patterns that wanted to be seen. And like Carlos mentioned, a lot of this has come into fruition over the past 20 years. We made a lot of great progress, and we did hear from the community that is, current development patterns are pretty much supported and wanted to keep along that track. But you will notice the addition that we made after discussing with staff and the community is an addition and a little bit of squishing and refining these character areas. You'll notice that the West End does extend beyond Olive Boulevard, or Olivet, I mean. And that's because while you all don't have necessarily control of what happens there, with the 39 North Ag Tech Innovation District, it's really going to be important to consider the impact of that and how all of it can, play nice or, develop inside or along with that. The city center is going to be much more of the, while you don't have a specific traditional downtown, that's kind of where the more dense walkable development comes into play with streetscaping, and you've seen a lot of that come into fruition so far. The new addition is this uptown area, and this was an addition based on trends that we've seen since this last plan, and realizing that there's a little bit more of a transition zone between city center and that I-170 interchange, eastern gateway, of a little bit more office, working buildings. It has some of the deepest, or the deepest lots along Olive Boulevard, and really paying attention to connecting and tying into that crucial industrial parks area. So in the plan itself, we get into a little bit more detail about these character areas. This is kind of what that looks like in the plan. We have suggestions and example photos, as well as current developments that have already happened in Olivet that kind of demonstrate these specific character areas to consider when development comes along. And then finally, implementation. So this is the goals and objectives in this plan suggest priorities for investment. This is a long-term plan, 15, 20-year plan. And so the alignment between these planning efforts ensures progress in reaching the overall community vision. This plan should really be reviewed annually because your priorities will shift. We can plan as best as we can for what we think is going to happen, but we all know things change. So annual review of this plan will be crucial in determining what priorities are each year in terms of your budget and CIP. You want to make sure that you're setting priorities in alignment with those and reviewing what's best for the community. Next, I'll just hand it off to Beth again for the next steps. And we're on our way.
So real quick. So tonight does begin your formal public hearing, and it will take public comment through noon on January 26th. So the public can go online and fill out a comment form that way. They can email Carlos or come to this meeting or the meeting on February 1st and offer testimony in person. So we anticipate, but we're not sure, wait and see what happens, but it's anticipated that at the next PCDC meeting on February 1st, that the plan would be ready to be adopted. And then after that, the city council would pass a resolution in support of the adoption, since PCDC is the official adopting body by statute for the plan. But great that it's supported by the city council as well. Then you just have to implement it for the next 15 or so years. So piece of cake. But yeah, thank you for your time tonight and going through this with us. We're excited for you for this plan. We're excited about your enthusiasm for it and how you're going to be able to use it. You have a great track record of using these plans to really guide the development in your community, like Carlos has demonstrated. So I'm excited for you and very glad to have been part of this process, but we'd be happy to take questions and comments on the draft.
Go ahead, Brian.
Beth, thank you all for the help, by the way, as part of it. I appreciate it. I'm curious, in the implementation, it mentioned kind of reviewing it each year and making changes. And I'm curious how often you see communities when they review, how much are they changing it? Is it a tweak or is it significant? Because as part of our 2006 one, I don't remember making changes directly to it. I think it was more of a guiding principle. We might shift our direction, but we would always, it seemed a little more static.
Yeah.
So I'm curious how much you would expect that to shift.
I wouldn't expect it to change dramatically. I think especially because your plan really emphasized that you wanted guidance and not getting into specific actions that were tied to a time frame. I see less shifting here than for plans that get more specific. Some communities end up getting very sort of just small scale with something is going to happen in the first 5 years. This is going to happen in the next 5 years. Those plans, there's going to be a little bit more shifting. I think here it would be an annual check-in just to review what's changed in terms of your demographics, what's changed in terms of market pressure, and where do your priorities need to be.
Sure.
So not so much a changing of the framework, like the goals, the vision, the objectives, but like what makes most sense to do this year based on those.
Goal H might become more
Yeah.
important than goal B because of
Yes,
weather,
it's
because of
priorities. Is that what you were
economic.
saying?
Okay,
Yeah.
that helps. I didn't see us, because it was a long process to get here.
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
we're
didn't
not-
see us
yeah,
wanting
so-
to
so not
crack
saying
that open and
yeah.
revisit somewhere, because Carlos is gonna have hives if we do that.
Right. No, Carlos is ready to move on and implement this. Do
Okay.
you want to add anything?
No,
Yeah.
I would just reiterate that, yeah, in terms of that review process, it's mainly kind of determining on what priorities you want to set and then how you can accomplish that. And like I mentioned, whether that's, ideally this would happen before your budget meetings and things like that so that you can, adequately budget for your priorities.
Mhm.
Carol?
So I think in part to answer some of Brian's question, a lot of plans in many ways are predictive. And this one is more policy oriented. So we don't have to think about, well, if it doesn't happen, the plan's gonna fall apart. I wanna put that, you know,
Guideline.
it's a guide, right, it's a
not a-
guidance.
yeah.
And I was gonna say that reviewing our more immediate policy priorities within the framework of the plan, I think it's been something that we've been doing to some degree, and this is we're articulating it
Mhm.
in a way that we haven't done before. But I think that's a good thing.
Absolutely. I think it'd be a good time to review what we've done. And like you said,
Mhm.
you talked about setting goals for what we want to try to accomplish in the next year. And try to shorten some of those goals, into closer timeframes that we can try to get done.
And you're right. It is a great time to reflect and see what's happened over the last year because the day-to-day things that you have to deal with, you kind of lose sight of, oh yeah, we have actually made progress on this overall vision as we've been doing these smaller things. So it's a good opportunity to just kind of get a sense of that as you're moving forward too.
Any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Carol.
No, I just wanted to say I think you've done a great job.
Good,
And
thanks.
I appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Carol.
I think a lot of people share that same feeling. I mean, especially for those of us who were on the advisory committee and kind of were a part of this, throughout. We really enjoyed working with you and I think the workshops were great and the community engagement was beyond expectations for what
Good.
we wanted. So thank you very much.
Yeah, good. Glad to hear it.
Anybody on, I'm gonna open it up to, go ahead, Dawn.
I'm not seeing any comments at this time, but if you are online and you would like to make a comment, please raise your hand.
Before we do that,
Oh,
Carlos?
one moment.
yeah, I think that would be a good time to.
When
do
you are
s-
ready,
Yeah,
Please raise your hand.
So I think right now, I think we would like to entertain any public comments, that people have in the audience. Yeah. Absolutely.
As part of to ensure that we have a formal public hearing process and are consistent with state statutes and our requirements. You will, bang the gavel and open it to a public hearing. Public hearing, again, we try to limit individual comments just depending on the sizes of the number of comments I've received. It seems like we only have a handful here, so I'll leave it up to you to decide or determine the amount of time. We ask that everybody that comes or approaches the podium state their name and their address and then to address the commission. Commission's not here to answer any questions. You're here to have a hearing. That is to listen to the comments of the community as it is to the final draft of the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan was fully posted. In the document that you have on your diocese today was on Monday, but that framework has been available since the presentation back in November and then throughout the month of December for the draft or the meat components of the plan itself. So the community's had ample time to provide comments and input on the objectives, the goals, and potential community actions in there. But now, like I said, on Monday, the full plan in itself with the documents and all the supplement components of it were posted in there. That being said, I'd ask the commission not to close the public hearing tonight and to continue it on to February 1st to allow our community a more ample time to be able to make comments at our next meeting, and then the commission can decide if they want to continue or close the hearing. We'll have a resolution set and prepared for the commission. The last thing I want to note, or two more things. The second to the last thing is this is the commission's plan. And it's required by state statute in there. The commission is a delegated, I believe that's the right term, is delegated certain authority by the council. And it is required to do so by state statute. It's not like the council came up with it. It's that you have certain activities and you report and recommend to the council. You're not a legislative body. You don't adopt or set any of the ordinances or regulations or legislation that's adopted by the council. This plan, though, impacts your recommendations to the council. It does not bind or limit the council in terms of what its decisions are. The council is an elected body, and they have the closest dialogue with our residents throughout the community and through their, as they go through elections and all that in the process. You're an appointed body working for the council, but you are beholden and you are the stewards of implementing the comprehensive plan. And we did this throughout 2006. The council did not always agree on the commission's recommendations, but the commission's recommendations were always based on the principles of the comprehensive plan. And it is the right for the council to determine and make its final decision in there, but it understands and it knows that it always has consistency from this commission that its plans and recommendations are based fundamentally on the comprehensive plan. So I'll note that it might be a question that comes up, or at least for the public to be aware. So it's this commission that is bounded, or the stewards of the comprehensive plan, not the council. The council has been generous enough to fund this plan in there to give us the flexibility to have this really broad engagement process for this plan. And ultimately, in the future, as we go, as once the plan is adopted, to fund its implementation efforts. And that might be either through other studies or other things in there to help and support the commission further implement that plan in there. And therefore, that's why we are forwarding that plan for the commission to the council to acknowledge it and hopefully support the commission in its implementation process. And lastly, to start the public hearing, of course, you'll bang the gavel. Last time Rob banged the gavel, my ear still was ringing. So just a tap will be sufficient. And then the public is, I'll let you decide for the public to come in. And again, we'll continue that hearing. All right. Thank you, Chairman.
We're ready to bang it now. Okay, thank you. Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll open the public hearing on the new Olivet comprehensive plan that's being proposed right now. So if there's anybody in the general public that would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand or come up. I have to think somebody up here would like to do.
I don't know what that's about, but I'm Kate Hellman. I live at 800 North Price Road. And as many of you know, I've kind of been a fly on the wall during this process, which has been really fun and interesting. And I kind of geek out about policy things like this. And it's been great to see the interaction with Shockey Consulting and the community and all the different pieces and parts that have gone into this plan. And I think it's a really great plan.
Kate, I'm going to just pause you real quick. Did you state your address?
I did.
You did? Okay, good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's all right. I especially appreciate the focus throughout the plan on what I see as kind of like 3 through lines. It's the commitment to developing the community, the commitment to our diversity, and then the commitment to move in a more sustainable direction, to be more responsible environmentally, but also to fulfill the 3 E's of sustainability, with a focus on the environment, a focus on the economy, and a focus on equity. And I really appreciate that all of those are there in this plan.
The comments that I have for improving the plan are in some ways just minor ones, but I still think they're important to be said nonetheless. So just a couple things that I think could help improve. First, in the information on the housing section, there's a lot of really great data there, but that data stops at 2021. And because we've had a lot of change in Olivet in 2022 and 2023, I think it would be important to incorporate that data into the plan, because the snapshot up until 2021 is very different in terms, especially in terms of the number of apartments that we have in Olivet that really came in just the recent past couple of years. And as a fly on the wall, that was one of the things that I heard a lot, is a concern about how many apartments there are in Olivet and how much land is being converted into large apartment buildings. Then another piece is just the healthy and safe, the focus, I don't know the goal letters, the safety one and the healthy lifestyle one. I think there's a piece there that is missing, and that is a focus on safe and healthy environments in terms of looking at making sure that our community is safe and healthy when it comes to air pollution, when it comes to water pollution, and when it comes to land-based pollution, and emissions and whatnot. That a key component of a healthy community and healthy lifestyles is being able to be in the community and in the outdoor environment and have a healthy place to live and work and exist. And then finally, there is a through line, as I said at the beginning, of sustainability that's throughout this plan that is wonderful, and yay, I'm so thrilled to see that. But it's not in the vision. And that to me, I think, oh, how can we incorporate that in the big vision, the big but small vision? That it's such a big part of this plan, but that it's not in our vision. To me, that seems like a little bit of a disconnect, especially because the vision, at least as I understand it in planning processes that I've been a part of before, the vision really sets the stage. That's the foundational sentence that sets up all of the other details and information that comes next. So I'd love to see sustainability somehow come out in this vision. Maybe it's the phrase that comes to mind for me is, instead of distinguished by its dynamic sense of place, potentially switching that to we're known for our community connection and our commitment to a thriving and sustainable future. So, but I'm really happy with this plan and really grateful for all the work that everyone in this room has done to get it to this place. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Please come up if you have a comments. We really would love to hear it. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Craig Todd. I live at 7 Heather Hill Lane. And I guess I'm one of those guys that there's a mention about equity or affordability early on. And that kind of makes me nervous. I don't know what you guys are planning, or do I need to be scared for like rebuilds? You're going to have price controls. I don't know. So I don't know how to address that. I wish I had a recommendation like Kate did and how to change it. And it's just something that's kind of in the background. What are you guys going to do? Is there some new thing you're going to do when it gets a tear down? It's like, whoa, let's control that price. Should be lower. I don't know. I'm not a policy guy. I'm not a planner. So I'm just curious and scared. So.
Thank you for your comment. Appreciate it. Do we want to address? I don't, not here. Okay, go. We'll answer some questions later if we can. Okay, good. Any other questions or comments out in the audience? Seeing none, Carlos, will you please check online? Or Dawn, will you please check online? Thank you.
It's okay. Go by Carlos. I'm not seeing any questions online at this moment.
Okay, great. Well, any other further discussion amongst the commission members? Okay, that being said, Carlos, now we still need to keep the hearing open, for the next week. But we still also need to go through our other items. Okay, so we can just keep it open while we go through other business items.
But you have
that
to
we don't-
continue.
Oh, we have to continue it. Okay. That- Okay. Well, I guess we're going to reflect, for the record, we're going to reflect that we're going to continue to hold the open hearing through the next meeting. So we appreciate everybody who came out here to listen to us and to kind of go over the overview of the plan. All right. Okay. So then we'll just move on now to other business, and on the agenda, it looks like we have some meeting minutes from January 4th, 2024. We're in our receipt. Take a moment to take a look at that, and then would love to get acknowledged. What's that?
Can someone acknowledge
Yeah,
the
I will
reception?
acknowledge receipt of the meeting minutes.
That's what I was working on. That's all right. Okay, good. Okay, now we'll move on to reports. Carlos?
Chairman, just a reminder, of course, our next meeting will be February 1st. On that, we'll continue the public hearing process and provide any of the comments that we received, whether online, either through the website or through email. And then we'll have a resolution on that. Based on tonight's meeting's attendance and all that, I may have some action items also placed on that agenda to help facilitate some petitions that we have in place right now. Outside of that, I don't have any other major updates to provide. And I don't know if Ms. Doty, you have any,
I do not either.
Okay.
In track.
be glad to answer any questions. If not, I'll bring it to our liaison.
Anybody on the commission? No one? I don't see anybody on the commission that has any questions, so thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
All right. Missy?
Thank you very much. Today is very exciting. It's, some of you were here in 2002, 3, 4, and 5. And it's exciting that there's new people here now to express what they want for the next vision of Olivet. And the difference is, yes, last time it was a corridor, and now we want to think more of our own environment and where we live, and continue some of the successes that we've had. With that, today I attended my Executive Municipal League Board meeting, and the Missouri legislature has begun their filing and they pre-filed, but have begun some filing of bills. Topics of concern this year are things like the video franchise fees, typical property tax freezing. If you've all read the newspaper recently, St. Louis County has a percentage, their age at a particular, the legislator of the state have their age at particular. And so those things are kind of being worked out, and where will that fall? Conversation about whether that should be a tier, kind of I'm using the wrong word, means tested versus just everybody at a particular age gets it. There's the potential of seeking removal of sales tax on grocery stores. So you have some legislators that don't live here that want to do things that could impact local municipalities. And that's why it's important that we have the municipal league. But having said that, we all, and I'm speaking to my public too, if you if your position is making sure that the state government does not usurp and interfere with what municipalities could do, because the decisions they make impact the revenues. The revenues impact the service impact the look and the position and the view and what ends up happening in the community. So with that, I just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to snuff that, this year's legislation session may be less combative because there's not those in the same parties still there arguing amongst themselves. So, it's going to be an interesting year, and we're going to watch that impact of trying to remove sales tax from groceries. That's a huge impact to this region. With that, again, thank you all for everything you do. I think the last time I sat up here and smiled this long, I think was in 2006. So with that, nothing really more to report. Hope to see you February 1st. Hope to see more come here and give their thoughts as we continue this process that you're gonna adopt. So thank you all again. Happy New Year to everybody.
Thanks, Missy. Appreciate it. Anybody else on the commission have anything they want to add? Once again, I just want to compliment and thank everybody for all the hard work on this. I know there's a lot of countless hours that, go beyond all these public meetings and events and planning and stuff that goes unnoticed, but I think people know how much this went off very smoothly. It was a long process that takes a lot of organization, to get through. And from the outside point of view, when I was at these meetings, they went off without a hitch, and they were fantastic, and it was very well attended. And I do think we met the goal for trying to get as much public outreach as we could, to get the voice of the community. So I really want to thank everybody, and you really did make it look easy. So I know there was a lot of hard work for it, but I have to say it was also kind of fun. The way you guys did this, it made it very enjoyable. So thanks again, and appreciate it. And we'll get a chance to kind of go through this document ourselves as well, and listen to the public comments that were made. Try to address your questions that you have, or any concerns before we go through any adoption, type process. So thanks everybody in attendance, and we appreciate you being here. We hope to see everybody here and more on February 1st. So thank you. We'll adjourn tonight at 8:09. Thank you.